I just visited the African American History Museum in Washington, D.C., and I have some issues with it. I got some pushback, I got some gripes. There's some things that I just flat out don't like. I think that there are some devious undercurrents, some thoughts that are going into this, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it here today. I also don't like some of the excuses that you guys are making out there inside of the community on reasons on why. Well, Freddie, well, perhaps it's like this. I'm going to dive into all of those things, and I'm going to highlight something that it's funny that I don't like, but it's just true nonetheless. Listen, let me jump off and say this place is absolutely spectacular. It is amazing to see. If you haven't been there, I definitely think that it's worth your time and take a visit. Is I have some issues with it, right? I'm gonna highlight that in just a moment, but that doesn't take away from how amazing this thing is. The issues that I have with it pale in comparison. Let's see what you think about that. But the issues that I have with it are not big enough that I think that you should block it out. It's not an either or, right? Either they do this or never gonna see it again, right? I'm not that type of person. I think that there's some gray area, right? So I have some gripes with it, but it's absolutely amazing the amount of information and things that they put in there. I just wish it would have been done a little bit differently. Here's a little quick video outside of the Blacksonian, right? As they say, it is huge. This place is so big. Listen, I was there probably over 6 hours, and I only saw half of it. And that's only because I just randomly picked one of the top floors, and we kind of just ran through it with the camera so that we could get the B-roll that we need in order to continue the conversation about the experience. Yeah, it is phenomenal, though. The amount of history and memorabilia and artifacts that they've collected in order to compile this is mind-blowing. I just can't even fathom the amount of time and how much money they actually spent. Somebody put down in the comments, how much money did they spend in order to build this thing? Hey, also drop down in the comments if you've ever been there before. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you've seen it before, you heard it before, and what are your thoughts, particularly around the gripes that I have with this place? Let me first off say, the food is spectacular. Listen, there's a cafeteria there because you're going to get hungry. If you're trying to take this down as much as you can, you're going to need to eat. It's easier, I would say, to eat right there on the premises there in D.C. And who knew that the food was spectacular? Like it was really, really good, right? So let me start off on the positives, right? It was really, really good food. Really, really good atmosphere. The place was laid out beautifully. The audio system is really unique and good. You're in certain areas, you can hear audio. It's just like kind of playing on repeat. You move to a different area and you can only hear that audio. So it's really a good immersive environment. My absolute favorite, I got goosebumps already. My absolute favorite exhibit, you couldn't take pictures. You couldn't take video or nothing. So I'm not going to ruin this for you because I can't, right? Wow. The Emmett Till funeral area, right? So they replicate the funeral there, and Mahalia Jackson is singing, and they have the quotes from Emmett Till's mother on the walls. This is a harrowing experience. It is deep and powerful. You know Mahalia Jackson, you know that voice is it just pierces your soul. But that was like one of the most moving exhibits I've ever seen. If you get a chance, take a peek inside of the casket. There's something there that'll blow your mind. This was unbelievable. If you're not familiar, Emmett Till was killed after a white woman who later confessed long after his death. I think she just confessed a couple of years ago that she lied and said Emmett Till harassed her at the convenience store, and her dad and her uncles ran to the house and fetched Emmett from the house. He was visiting relatives down south from Chicago, and they murdered that young boy, a 14-year-old boy, murdered for the lies of this woman who later confessed I'd say put her butt in jail. That is ridiculous that she got someone murdered, and then all of these years later, after she's done lived her life, I think she's in her 80s or 90s. That boy Emmett Till should be in his 80s and 90s by now, but he is gone, buried in the water, tied down, and eventually found. And his mother decided to have an open casket, and that open casket hit the news circuits, and it really put fervor under the civil rights movement. A brave move, but there's a quote by her on the wall. I wish I would have wrote it down because, again, I couldn't take pictures, right? But she talked about living in the North, living in Chicago, and saying that she always thought that the troubles of the Negro in the South were their troubles, were their problems. Little did she know that it was going to come home to her doorstep. And I got to get this quote because I love this conversation for our community, because a lot of us are doing well. A lot of us are doing okay financially, educationally, with the family, and things are going well. And we don't want to get involved in the movement, right, for equality here in this country and on this planet, not just in this country, because we feel like our place in white supremacy is secured. Right, we got a good job, we got a good retirement plan. We just going to keep our head down and stay the business and stay the path. And that's what Emmett Till's mom was alluding to when she talked about, I thought the problems of the Negro were theirs in the South. The problems of the Negro are the problems of us Africans in the Americas, and Africans on this planet are all of ours. And sooner we understand that, the better. But that was a very moving space. It takes some time to get through there just because of the weight of it. So I definitely want to recommend that you make sure that you go see that particular piece. But anyway, inside of the this Blacksonian, right, is a lot of deep history and culture. And I'm not going to try to bring up all of the images and show you everything that I saw inside of here, or give you insight into, every specific thing that I experienced. But there are some things that I'll just bring up, some things that I'll just show as we kind of go through here and have some conversation. Now, let me get to some of my gripes, right? Let me dive into this a little bit more as I'll try to bring up some of the imagery and the things that you will see as my computer, of course, is going to mess with me here today. But I'll get to some of that in a bit, right? Once that starts to buffer. Okay, looks like it's going through. There we go. So you got a little bit more of the conversation and the engagement around here. So, but there's a lot. There's a lot going on. I see I'm still freezing up here. All right, so it's not really wanting to let me play the video. There we go. So you can just see a little bit and hear a little bit from the discussion, right, as we going through this. But it begins in slavery, right? So that's a conversation that we always have. Where should we start our history? How far back do we need to go? What's the appropriate thing to do? And I hear a lot of people say, well, this is the history of the African American, so it shouldn't start in Africa. Why do you think that it should start in Africa, Freddie? This is about the African American experience. This is not about the Africans. Well, to those people that say that, I say that you haven't been to the museum. And I know you haven't been, because if you've been, then you've been in the basement. If you've been in the basement, you know that it starts at C1, goes C2, C3 as you move up towards that main floor. But it starts in the 1400s. So it starts in the 1400s with slavery, right? So most of the times you think it's 1619 because they got you conditioned on this number 1619 of bringing Africans into America in 1619, 400 years. Turns out the Portuguese started the slave trade in 1455, right? Rounding the coast of Africa and snatching Negroes off of their continent, out of their civilization, from their families, from their structure, from their society, from their jobs, from their parental responsibilities. This is when the psychopathic behavior started in the mid 1400s. This is where the museum, the African American History Museum starts in Washington. Picks up in the 1400s with the slave trade. And here brings forth my main gripe with this beautiful, well-constructed, well thought out. I was going to try to give you some more images. Well thought out, amazingly put together, well curated, and all of these beautiful things and all of these beautiful words that we could cast upon the museum here. It is stunning. It is worth your time, but it's grounded and rooted in slavery. This is the whole point. The narrative that I like to push back against, the narrative that we like to push back against here at Urban Intellectuals, is we can't start our history with slavery. This narrative is incomplete, it's garbage, and context creates understanding. So why go back to the 1400s if you're not going to create any context around the people that were human trafficked, the people that were stolen out of their countries, stolen out of their tribes, stolen from their people, stolen from their land, robbed of their language, robbed of their culture, their music, their food, their history, tracked across the water. Many of them died in the greatest Holocaust of Africans that the world has ever seen. Why start just with that? Why not start just a blip? Not even before then. In the 1400s, there's a lot of great African history that could have been covered. There's a lot of great African history that could have been included in this discussion. There could have been a small section that talked about many of the historical empires that were happening in this area at the time. We're talking about Mali, Songhai, Ghana, right? The Benin Empire, what's happening in Angola, all up and down the coast of Africa, throughout Central Africa. Do we go Eastern Africa and Kush and Kemet and Ethiopia? There's so much history of Africans on this continent doing miraculous things. Not to mention Timbuktu, where we have universities of St. Corey and a university in Alexandria, universities at Timbuktu. The contributions to math and science and astronomy that the Africans have given over the time. There's no room to set a little bit of context. There's no time in this place where I've spent over 6 hours and I barely got through half of the building, half of the material. There's no time to give any context. You just really rolled up on the land, grabbed some savages and ran back across the water with them, and they had nothing to do with nothing. I have a major gripe with that. I have a major issue with that because slavery isn't Black history. It interrupted Black history. How did it interrupt Black history? Because long before the Europeans showed up on the shores of Africa and enticing, and forcing this trade, this ain't no trade, this genocide of Africans, this theft of people, this theft of intellectual property, this theft of bodies, this theft of mental capacity. You didn't just get physical labor, they got mental labor. This is the conversation that's not being had. This is the conversation that's ignored throughout that bottom section of that museum. This is why we're going to start a letter writing campaign. They got to change this narrative. This is trash. This does not feed the soul in the future of Africans, these Africans in America. This is not inspiring. It's not enlightening. Our people ain't slaves. Our people survived this Holocaust. They survived the Holocaust. It's not of the people. Slavery isn't Black history. It interrupted Black history. Let's change the narrative and tell the whole damn story. It wouldn't take nothing to take a section and paint the picture of African civilization, African cultures, African languages, African traditions, African music, African art, African science, African understanding, African engineering, African technology, African contribution to the planet. Because African Americans are not who they went over there and stole from Africa. They didn't go over there and get no damn African Americans. They didn't go get no Afro-Brazilians. They didn't go get no Jamaicans. They didn't go grab no Haitians. They went and got the Mende. They went and got the Yoruba. They went and got the Fulani. They went and got the Bamileke. They went and got the Igbo. They went and got people with history and culture and language and tradition and understanding. They didn't go grab no damn slaves. Stop letting people feed that narrative to you. And this is a multi-billion-dollar project that shoves that further down our throats. That's not inspiring to our community. That's not inspiring to our future. We are not a people who have been on this planet that were saved because the savages came from Europe and came into Africa and forced the slave trade on a people that was doing fine for tens of thousands of years. That's the narrative that's being truncated from. This is the reason I get up in arms over this, because I think it's trash. I found out that I'm Mende. I'm not an African. I'm not an African that was just brought here to America and labeled an African American, and now I'm free and I'm happy. I was robbed of my history. I was robbed of my heritage. I was robbed of my language, my culture, my connection. I was robbed of the opportunity to feed and grow and build with my people. And I'm like 45 million other Africans in America who have lost trace of their history and their culture because somebody went somewhere and stole some people with history, culture, and understanding under their belts. And then you rewrite the narrative. You spend billions of dollars on this big, pretty building that steps on the history and the tradition of our ancestors, erases them for history, and just calls them slaves. And you're going to force feed that down the throats of the African Americans that you say this beautiful place is to serve and honor, and force that down the throats of the other Americans in the country and people who catch wind of this. Yeah, they doing good now. They sure is, master. They doing good. Look at them. Them boys can read, write, and spell and jump and play basketball. How lucky and fortunate are they that now they are African Americans? We erase their entire existence on the planet. Where is the ingenuity? Where is the creativity? Where's the intellectual spark that was stolen out of Africa? That conversation. Where am I going with this? When I was in Sierra Leone, getting my citizenship, getting my dual citizenship, because I found out that I'm Mende out of Sierra Leone, went through the process and the process of learning the history, the culture, the government, and all of that stuff, reconnecting with my Mende roots in 2023, April 2023, by the way. I was at Bunce Island. Bunce Island is the home of the slave trade there, the slave genocide there in Sierra Leone. It was here that I learned some more stories. It was here that I learned that the Mende were excellent rice farmers. And these excellent rice farmers were noted for their ability to grow rice, grow food, grow things out of the ground using the sky, the elements, the earth, the water. They're agriculturalists. They have a skill set. They understand things. Then I know that that boat, that floating cemetery, as I've heard it called, float into Bunce Island, is packed up with its cargo. And one of those cargo individuals was my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Was on that shore, ended up on that boat and sailed west for Charleston, South Carolina. Somebody in the comments tell me what made Charleston, South Carolina rich. And you're going to say, oh, it's the free labor. Oh, man, they got all them Africans to do all the work for them. Rice. The Gold Coast, the rice made Charleston one of the richest countries richest cities. Charleston, South Carolina. Made Charleston, South Carolina one of the richest cities in the world. Rice farming. It was built on the back of people like the Mende that came from Africa with this knowledge. They were not trained and taught by any Europeans that knew how to do this. They brought the knowledge themselves. They cleared the lands. They built the dikes. They built the levees. They built the irrigation systems to build out and grow rice in this particular area. They came with this knowledge. None of that. You're not going to get any of that at the Blacksonian. You're not going to get any of that at the African American History Museum. All of that has been conveniently left out of the conversation. This narrative of dependency has been woven deeper and deeper, and just billions of dollars is placed on that now. They already got an educational system that pushed back towards independent thought, knowledge, and understanding outside of the narratives that are being spun into the minds of our children, into the minds of the rest of the world. The Africans on the planet, the Africans in the diaspora, the Africans that identify as Black, African, or whatever it is that they identify with, their long and storied history and contributions to humanity are being ripped away from them through narratives like this that is happening in Washington, D.C. at the African American History Museum, the Blacksonian. This is a major gripe. This is literally one of the major pushes that Urban Intellectuals pushes back on in unison, right? Sister Gwen Ebron's one of our professors, our teachers inside of our Sankofa Circle, where we teach Black history to adults, and our Sankofa Nation, where we teach Black history to children, who refuses to start the discussion with slavery. That's the only thing that's ever shoved down your throat, my throat, the children's throat, the future throat. Now, I'm not just talking about Black children. This is shoved down everyone's throat. Yeah, well, they're doing so well now. Them boys, man, them people was enslaved. They doing all right now. No, my people was much more than that. Again, my people endured slavery. Slavery is not Black history. It interrupted Black history. There's a long and glorious history that goes back thousands of years, long before Egypt, right? And before Egypt. And Egypt's in Africa, right? I hate to bust all of y'all bubble, but so is North Africa too. Algiers, Morocco, all of these places that y'all pretend is some other mythical place called the Middle East. It's not. And the people that are there now, the Arabs that are there now, didn't get there until the 6th and 7th century BC. Don't be mad at me for knowing history. Don't be mad at me for knowing history. How about you pull it up and read it yourself? But these narratives that's being sprung, all of them are making certain of one thing that John Henry Clark, my man right here, often said: you have no friends. Ain't none of these people trying to help and serve you amazing African people in the diaspora on the planet. Up you mighty nation, as Garvey talked about, right? Well, Garvey's back here too, right? Up you mighty nation. Let's do for self. Let's start by reframing these narratives, right? Because they put these glasses on you to get you to see the world from a particular perspective, a European perspective. And if you see the world from that perspective, you're going to defend it. But if you take those glasses off and you start to see that perspective that they're trying to feed you doesn't give the whole picture. This is reinforced by this museum. And I think it's wrong. I think it's dangerous. I think it's short-sighted, and I don't think it feeds the spirit of the African American community. Why? Because it's an incomplete story. It starts at the bottom of our story. It starts not even in the middle. This is new compared to how old we are as a people on this planet. And for y'all that are saying, it's an African American museum, Freddie, why would it start in Africa? Because ain't nobody go over to Africa and steal no African Americans. They went and stole people with deep history, culture, society, understanding, traditions, government, and more. Listen, the fact that it hurts you feel like it hurts little Johnny's feelings to find out that his ancestors were psychopaths. What do you want me to do about that? You want me to lie to my children so that they can feel bad and realize and be told that their ancestors was nothing more than slaves. Man, they got a strong back and they were able to endure hell. They're so lucky. That's supposed to be the narrative. No, I'm not taking part in that. You might take part in that. I'm not going to take part in that. And here on our platform, we're going to talk about the truth. We're going to tell the whole story. If you're going to tell the history and your narrative is weak, I'm going to call you out on it. You have to start before the period of enslavement. You have to. All right, and then of course, while you're walking through there, it's just trying to reinforce the narrative. Oh, the Africans were selling Africans. The Africans were involved. Listen, if I come to your house, I come to your place, it's you, your family, y'all all out in your big farm or whatever the case may be. I come with guns, machetes, and an attitude that you ain't never experienced before in your life. I walk up, you gonna walk up and greet me. You the king, you the ruler of your family, your house. I chop your head off, wham, and say, now who's in charge? You point to the son. I say, I chop his head off, wham. Now I point to the next person. Now you gonna go get me some Negroes or what? How many more heads got to roll before you start participating and falling in line? Freddie, you ain't really work like that. How you know? Do you know the type of people that we're talking about? Do you know that lying about the narrative of the story is the least that they would do? Somebody was actually chopping these heads off. Just go read the history. Just go find out about all the private organizations that was funding militia to go into Africa, kill, murder, destroy, and take over particular lands, control it, milk it of its resources, build multi-billion and trillion-dollar companies on it, and then sell the area back to the British Crown or the German government or whomever the French government. Whichever murdering psychopathic government and insurance companies and bank that was funding the expeditions. These were murder trips. There were no friendly expeditions. Are you kidding me? Do you know what was going on during this period? And then you just want me to buy, the Africans, they were just selling themselves. You know, just what was going on. Do you know how naive you sound? Do you know how silly that sounds? And if the Africans were so involved in this trade and was making so much money on it, where the hell is it? Where is it? Because I can point to De Beers, those diamonds that you like, founded by Cecil Rhodes, chopping off 20 million, killing 20 million Africans in South America, along to building the biggest diamond company in the world. He's just such a hard worker. I can tell he got rich. The Royal Niger Company became Unilever. I can tell they got rich. Sierra Leone got its name from the company, the Sierra Leone Company. I can tell they got rich. We got to stop it with this nonsense of buying the narrative that your people never did anything of note until the Europeans came, enslaved us, and then now brought us to light. And now all of a sudden, we're free and great people all of a sudden. Turns out you always been that. Turns out when you flip the pages of history and go back beyond the narrative, there is wonderful things coming out of the continent of Africa. And I'm talking about for humanity, not just for black folks, not just for Africans, but for the world. We're old civilization. But one thing's for sure, when you start to dig through the history, you find out that you have no friends. This is why nobody wants you to go study your history and your culture, because you will find out that they always had their hand in your pocket. And you will start to realize that if you're going to get ahead in this world, we better start working together. This is what I've got from my visit at the Blacksonian there in Washington, D.C. I'm interested to hear, what are your thoughts? What did you get from that episode? Of course, I'm going to come back with a whole lot of other things that I learned individually in between there, and the trip that we got, the information that we got from the DC trip. We're putting together a very special series that are going to chronicle Black history in America throughout the different cities. I'm super excited. I'm probably going to come to a city near you very soon here this year in 2025. I'm super excited about that, getting out on the road, meeting the community and talking to our people, building and growing, starting to press the flesh so that we can start to be the solution that we want to see in the world and stop asking other people to bail us out. We've always been capable. Once you keep digging through this history and culture, you'll start to find out why so many people are trying to keep this information from you. You don't know how powerful you are, but together we're going to figure it out. So hopefully you enjoy my breakdown on the, I got to give you my last one, right? My last gripe is they don't have available our Black History flashcards by urban intellectuals, right? They are not on deck. We don't have the player cards in there, so we're going to work hard to rectify that. Hey, if you know anybody that works inside of the museum, please let us know so that we can contact them. I'd love to get some deeper history and culture in there because basically they definitely need our pre-1492 deck where we start about 35,000 years ago and come up to 1492. You want some real history, let's dive into it. Second of all, my second takeaway is, yes, we're going to start a letter writing campaign against this narrative to push it out of the Blacksonian and push it out of the educational system in general, but hopefully push it out of the hearts and the minds of the parents and the teachers in the community. We have to expand this conversation. It is absolutely imperative that we do so and stop playing small with a people who have a history that is deep, is beautiful, is cultured, is rich in language, in universities, in education, and in medicine, and health, and astrology, and the stars, and technology. It is a music. It is a beautiful thing. And let's do our best to share it in an honest way that's going to uplift and inspire not only ourselves and our community, but the world around us. We have always been a beacon of civilization for humanity. Today's no different, and we have to continue to bring that forward. So hopefully you enjoyed my conversation today. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you disagree with me, hey, that's your prerogative. Let me hear it in the thoughts. Get me right. Get your boy together. If you agree, definitely let me know that as well. I really enjoyed today's conversation. I'm going to come and talk to you a little bit more like this, just candidly. I got some more. I know Frederick Douglass is weighing on my mind because that was like another one of the long, extensive discussions that we had there. So look out for that in the next coming days and a lot from Frederick Douglass. I would sleep on the good brother. I'm just going to be honest with you. I can admit when I'm wrong. I don't have any problems with that, but I'm excited to hear your comments down below. And I'm excited to bring that new information to you about good brother Frederick Douglass coming soon. So until next time, good people, you know what it is. Love, peace, and power to the people.